The Eastern Front of World War II was a theatre of unparalleled ferocity. From the icy plains of Russia to the rolling steppes of Ukraine, the fate of nations hung in the balance. The Battle of Kursk, fought in the scorching summer of 1943, stands as a pivotal chapter in this epic struggle. It was a clash of ideologies, a clash of armies, and a clash of wills that would irrevocably alter the course of the war. The Battle of Kursk represented a critical turning point in the war, marking the end of Germany's strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. After their devastating defeat at Stalingrad, the German army sought to regain the initiative and strike a decisive blow against the Red Army. Kursk, with its prominent salient jutting into the German lines, presented an enticing target for Hitler, who believed a decisive victory here could turn the tide of the war back in his favor. The stage was set for one of the largest and most consequential battles in human history. On the vast plains of Kursk, over 3 million men, thousands of tanks and countless artillery pieces were poised for a confrontation that would determine the fate of the Eastern Front and shape the outcome of World War II. The fate of the world hung in the balance as two colossal military machines prepared to collide in a battle for the ages. Following the German defeat at Stalingrad, a tense calm settled over the Eastern Front. The winter of 1942 to 1943 saw the exhausted Wehrmacht reel back from the Volga River, licking its wounds and regrouping. Meanwhile, the Red Army, invigorated by its victory at Stalingrad, pressed its advantage, launching a series of offensives that liberated key cities and drove the Germans further west. However, both sides were acutely aware that the respite was temporary. A major confrontation was inevitable, and both sides understood that the outcome would have far-reaching consequences. The Germans, desperate to regain the initiative, began planning a massive summer offensive, codenamed Operation Citadel, aimed at eliminating the Kursk salient. The Soviets, privy to German intentions through their intelligence networks, chose to adopt a strategy of deliberate defense. Anticipating the German offensive, they fortified the Kursk salient to an unprecedented degree, transforming it into a formidable defensive bastion, bristling with anti-tank guns, minefields, and interlocking defensive positions. The Soviets were determined to bleed the Wehrmacht white in a battle of attrition, breaking the back of the German army once and for all. The stage was set for a titanic clash of arms, a battle that would test the limits of human endurance and military might. As the spring of 1943 gave way to the sweltering heat of summer, both sides braced for the inevitable storm. The fate of the Eastern Front, and perhaps the entire war, hung precariously in the balance. Operation Citadel, Hitler's grand plan to regain the initiative on the Eastern Front, hinged on a pincer movement aimed at encircling the Soviet forces within the Kursk salient. The German Ninth Army, commanded by Field Marshal Walter Model, was to strike from the north, while the 4th Panzer Army, led by Field Marshal Erich von Manstein, would attack from the south. Their objective to link up near Kursk, trapping the Soviet forces caught in the salient. Confident in the prowess of his panzer divisions, spearheaded by the new Panther and Tiger tanks, Hitler believed a swift and decisive victory at Kursk would cripple the Red Army and force Stalin to sue for peace. The Führer envisioned Operation Citadel as a decisive turning point, a chance to reverse the tide of war that had increasingly turned against Germany. However, the German plan was not without its flaws. The Red Army's awareness of the impending offensive allowed them to prepare formidable defenses. The element of surprise, crucial for the success of any blitzkrieg operation, was lost. Moreover, the terrain around Kursk, with its open fields and numerous rivers, favored the defender. The German offensive, reliant on speed and maneuverability, would be hampered by the challenging terrain and the increasingly muddy conditions caused by summer rains. Despite these challenges, Hitler remained resolute. He pinned his hopes on the technological superiority of his new weapons, particularly the Panther and Tiger tanks, which he believed would prove decisive in breaking through the Soviet defenses. The stage was set for a colossal clash of arms, a battle that would test the limits of German offensive power against the resilience of the Soviet defense. Section 4. The Soviet defense in depth, a wall of steel. Anticipating a major German offensive, the Soviets, under the astute leadership of Generals Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky, prepared a defense-in-depth strategy designed to blunt the German attack and inflict maximum casualties. The Kursk salient was transformed into a veritable fortress, with multiple defensive lines, minefields, anti-tank ditches, and interlocking fields of fire. The Red Army's defensive strategy centered on the concept of elastic defense, which allowed for the absorption of the initial German attack, followed by powerful counterattacks. This approach aimed to draw the German forces into a series of killing zones, where they would be subjected to withering fire from concealed anti-tank guns, artillery, and Katyusha rocket launchers. The Soviets deployed their forces in great depth, with the intention of wearing down the German offensive through attrition. Behind the forward defensive lines, powerful reserve formations, including tank armies equipped with the new T-34-85 tank, waited patiently for the opportune moment to launch counter-offensives and drive back the exhausted German forces. The Soviets understood that the key to victory lay in their ability to withstand the initial German onslaught and inflict heavy losses, paving the way for a decisive counterstroke. The Soviet defense-in-depth strategy, characterized by its meticulous planning, unwavering determination, and willingness to absorb heavy initial losses, proved highly effective in blunting the German offensive. The Red Army's willingness to fight for every inch of ground and its ability to replace its losses with fresh reserves ultimately proved decisive in the Battle of Kursk. Section 5. Clash of Titans. The battle begins. The Battle of Kursk commenced on July 5, 1943, as the Wehrmacht unleashed Operation Citadel. German forces, spearheaded by their powerful panzer divisions, surged forward with their characteristic ferocity, aiming to shatter the Soviet defenses and achieve a decisive breakthrough. The initial German attacks, supported by massive artillery bombardments and Luftwaffe airstrikes, made some headway, particularly in the southern sector of the salient. However, the Soviet defenders, dug in and determined, put up fierce resistance, inflicting heavy casualties on the advancing German formations. The Red Army's anti-tank guns, cleverly concealed in camouflage positions, took a heavy toll on the German tanks, while their artillery rained down a relentless barrage on the enemy's infantry and supply lines. Despite their initial successes, the German advance soon bogged down in the face of stiffening Soviet resistance. The Red Army's defense-in-depth strategy, coupled with the challenging terrain and the increasingly muddy conditions, slowed the German advance to a crawl. The element of surprise was lost, and the German offensive, designed as a lightning strike, became bogged down in a war of attrition. The Battle of Kursk was a clash of titans, a brutal and unforgiving struggle for supremacy on the Eastern Front. Both sides fought with extraordinary courage and tenacity, but as the battle raged on, it became increasingly clear that the German offensive had lost its momentum. The Red Army, bloodied but unbowed, had absorbed the best the Wehrmacht could throw at it and was now poised to launch its own counter-offensive.